Pops, I was thinking today we'd do a video on a little upstart company, a little startup, a little tech startup called
Carvana?
The last automotive continent of Carvana.
Carvana.
So we're going to talk about Carvana today.
Yes.
There were two interesting things that happened recently with Carvana. One was a Wall Street Journal profile that was done on the company that talks about how they make money. We're going to touch on that. Before we do, I want to start with some legal issues that Carvana is facing, because we get a lot of comments back on the YAA community, link to it down below, about people and their experience with Carvana.
Yes.
I had a great experience. I sold my car to them. It was
Yes.
a breeze. I sold a car to them that they shouldn't have paid as much for it. But whatever. That's a whole different story.
Yes.
People have good experiences. They have bad experiences. In North Carolina,
a gentleman had a rather bad experience.
And now Carvana is on probation for 180 days.
At one of their locations.
I think it's in two now, actually.
Yes, but in one of them, the Raleigh location, they're not allowed to sell cars at all.
Yes.
Out of the Raleigh location. And the reason for that is, they sold a gentleman a car, and they never titled it for him. It took a lot longer than it should have. They asked him to print out a temporary tag from his home. He bought the car in-state in North Carolina, and they issued a temporary out-of-state tag so he could drive on it, even though he didn't buy it out of state. They circumvented as many North Carolina motor vehicle laws and registration laws as they possibly could, until the Department of Motor Vehicles said, nah, this don't fly.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Carvana is essentially in Wake County, North Carolina.
Yes.
Essentially had their dealer license revoked for 180 days.
Yes, suspended for 180 days. And my suspicion is that if you were to check to see exactly how many dealer licenses get suspended or revoked in North Carolina in any given year, it's probably less than one. This is probably the first one this year, and it's a biggie.
Yeah, it really is.
And then they were having some issues at their Charlotte facility.
Yep.
And so they've been put on probation there. They're allowed to continue selling cars.
You're right.
But they've been put on probation through all of 2022 at that store. So another violation of whatever that particular violation was. That store will get shut down. They won't be able to sell cars there either. And here's the most amazing thing. Carvana, a.k.a. Carvana, accounts for 9% of all the pre-owned cars sold in North Carolina. So if you force 1/4 of their dealerships to close for 180 days, that's a pretty severe penalty.
Yeah, no, it's a huge penalty.
Yeah.
And it also kind of brings to light something. I was talking to your brother the other night. My dad's brother, my uncle.
Yes.
Yeah, he invests in the stock market. That's what he does. And he was telling me about an article that was in Barron's about Carvana recently.
Yes.
And he couldn't wrap his head around the idea that in the article they said, their CEO, Ernie Garcia, said some quote along the lines of, or to the effect of, we've automated aspects of the vehicle repair process so we no longer need as experienced mechanics as you would find in a dealership. Verbatim. Or not verbatim. I'm paraphrasing. And Kenny, your brother, says to me, well, that doesn't give me any confidence. What do you mean you don't need mechanics as good as you have in a dealership? Because you're building systems and stuff? And then we hear stories back on the YA community about, okay, I bought this car from Carvana. Remember that poor gentleman in Florida who bought the Mercedes?
Yes.
Just issues out the wazoo.
Yeah, so anyway, but they corrected them all.
And they did correct them, yeah. The point I'm bringing up, though, is it's a fast-growing company.
Yes.
They're doing some things that push the industry in the right direction.
Yes.
But you kind of got to take it with a grain of salt. There are issues that they're facing. You should be aware of them. And it's not like a buyer beware or anything like that, but it's just be aware.
Yes.
You know, they're trying to move fast.
And there are technologies in place. I know at some of the stores that I used to work at, particularly when they built a new Audi facility, they put in a device that as you enter the service lane and you drive over the service lane into the service lane, there's a device there that automatically measures the tread depth on all 4 tires, so that the service writer can tell you as he's writing up your service for the day, by the way, here's your tread depth. You're going to need 2 tires, or you're going to need 4. So there are ways that this artificial intelligence, this technology can work. Whoa. And then there's other ways that, well, it doesn't, because it can't.
And you end up with your dealer license revoked.
It can't replace a human being.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Dropping the AI, Pops.
Sorry.
And not the Allen Iverson. Can I get a quick
practice?
Thank you.
We're talking practice.
So the other thing I wanted to touch on with
Yes.
Carvana is the Wall Street Journal profile.
Yes.
They made a lot of money.
One of the terms in the car industry is they made a shit ton of money. Yeah.
Carvana has been making a lot of money. Everyone in automotive has been making a lot of money.
Yes.
You've been following the channel long enough, you know what's going on there. What was interesting about this profile from the Wall Street Journal was they're doing a heck of a lot of it on their loans.
Yes.
Which is ironic because if you ever go on Carvana and pretend to buy a car and start to fill it out, the loan quotes you get are trash. Like, no offense to anyone at Carvana, but they are like double what you would see advertised online.
Yeah, that's where they make their money. Yeah, actually, they make 39% of their money on the retail side of selling the car. They make 36% of their money on the finance side of selling the car, and that's a huge number. But yeah,
did you realize that the company that writes the loans is owned by Ernie Garcia? The company that writes the service contracts, the VSCs, the extended warranties, is owned by Ernie Garcia. And then Ernie Garcia, the CEO of Carvana, who
is
owns
owned by his father.
Who owns 40? Yeah, his father owns 45% of Carvana.
Yeah.
And then the one thing that Carvana does do on these loans, the 36% of their gross profit comes from, that I find interesting, and I want your take on it because you lived through the financial crisis, is they don't hold on to their book of loans.
Yeah.
They sell it. They sell it to other investors.
Yes.
So, for example, the way that CarMax makes money is CarMax is notorious in the industry for having an impeccable loan portfolio.
Yes.
They have just incredible debt. People pay on the loans. The people that buy from CarMax pay on their loans, and it's a beautiful thing.
Maybe because they make sure the customer's actually qualified for that loan.
Why would they do that? Because they hold on to the loan.
And here's what you have to realize when it comes to Carvana, or Carvana, is that, they were spawned by a company called Drive Time.
Which still exists, yeah.
Yeah, that's Ernie's father's first business. And they specifically help people with credit issues.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's their background.
But this is what I find interesting, Pops. They don't hold on to their loans.
Well, why would you if it's people that already have displayed that they have credit issues?
Let's explain it just to make sure everyone understands. Because I think this happened in real estate. It's very different than automotive. Because hopefully the house should appreciate or the property should appreciate versus a vehicle, which traditionally wouldn't. But what Carvana does is, let's say they loan you $100 at 10% interest.
Yes.
So they could make 10%, or they could make $10 over the lifetime of that loan. What they do instead is they actually go around to the private markets and they sell that loan to someone else for $2. $102. They make their $2
up
right
front,
then,
and then the buyer gets to wait for the other $8.
The issue with that, CarMax does not do that. CarMax holds on to their loans. The issue with that is, what incentive do I have as Carvana, or the company that works with Carvana that's owned by...
to make sure that these people are actually qualified to pay back the loans?
That's where I get confused and concerned and, flustered a little bit, is... and that happened during the financial crisis, if I'm not mistaken.
That's exactly what happened. I mean, during the financial crisis, if you wanted to buy a house, if you wanted a mortgage, all you had to do to qualify was the mortgage people would put a mirror under your nose. If any form of fog showed up on that mirror, miraculously, you were approved for a mortgage that you couldn't afford. The same is being applied to a certain degree.
It's a concern.
Yeah, it should be a concern, because we know history tends to repeat itself. And
Indeed.
We know that there is an inherent amount of greed in the financial markets. And when there's greed, oftentimes a lack of clarity and sense seems to go by the wayside, so that people will be getting loans that shouldn't be getting loans. Other people will be buying those loans that shouldn't be buying those loans. And eventually, like in the movie Airplane, the poop is going to hit the fan.
Leasing right now leasing a new car might make more sense than buying a used car.
Yes.
Hear us out. Hold us, read the article down below. But the consumer who's getting approved for a loan that they may or may not need to get approved for on a vehicle that is overvalued right now, inflated in price right now, 12 to 18 months from now, they're holding the bag. Their negative equity position is going to be scary.
If they still own that car, they're holding the bag, trust me.
Exactly.
12 to 18 months from now.
So, Carvana, dealer license revoked, on probation at another location, making a metric ton of money.
Yes.
Interesting practices within
Also
the business.
known as a boatload.
Also known as a boatload.
Yeah.
Interesting business practices. We'll link to the Wall Street Journal article down below as well. We'll probably have a discussion going on the YA community forum too. But it's just a cool company.
Can I say one thing about the Wall Street Journal articles?
Yeah, please.
If you don't have a Wall Street Journal subscription, you can't read the article.
This one you can.
I couldn't.
Oh, you
You
couldn't?
forwarded it to me. I couldn't read it.
I could read it.
I got a paragraph and a half, Ed.
Maybe we should do that on our YouTube videos. You can watch the
Yeah.
first 90 seconds.
Yeah, well, yeah, but most people find that's way more than enough.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, honey.